Quick note before we start, this video is meant to explain the mechanical principles, history, and broader context of the AK-47 in an educational way. I will not provide instructions for building, modifying, or unlawfully obtaining weapons, and I won't go into any step-by-step destructive details. If you want to include a safety disclaimer in your video, you can place it at the beginning, something short about legal and safety responsibilities. Now, here's the script for your YouTube video on how an AK-47 works, written as a continuous spoken narrative in clear, engaging English and long form so it fits the length you requested. Imagine a weapon so famous its silhouette is recognized almost everywhere, on posters, on monuments, in movies, and in history books. The AK-47 has become a potent symbol of conflict, revolution, and survival, but beneath that familiar shape lies a fairly straightforward mechanical idea that helped shape modern small arms. Today we're going to walk through the story and the logic of how an AK-47 works. From the basic parts you can see at a glance to the internal choreography that turns a single pull of the trigger into a burst of metal and gas leaving the barrel. I'll explain the design choices that make it reliable in extreme conditions, touch briefly on its historical development and variants, and end with considerations about accuracy, use, and responsibility. I'll speak plainly and try to keep the technical parts intuitive. No blueprints, no assembly instructions, just the engineering concepts that explain why the rifle behaves the way it does. Let's begin. At first glance, the AK-47 looks simple: a long barrel, a stock, a pistol grip, a curved magazine, and a basic sight. Those visible parts are only the beginning. The heart of the design is a gas-operated action paired with a robust, rotating bolt. Gas operation means that some of the high-pressure gases produced when a cartridge fires are diverted from the barrel to power the mechanism that cycles the rifle. This is the key to automatic or semi-automatic fire. The rotating bolt locks the breech during the high-pressure moment right after firing, keeping the system safe and letting the rifle handle the energy of the cartridge. Combine those two features with a long stroke piston, a solid metal rod that runs rearward with the bolt carrier, and you have a mechanism that tolerates dirt, mud, sand, and neglect better than many more delicate systems. Start by picturing the firing sequence as a short, repeated story. A fired cartridge makes gas. That gas pushes a piston. The piston moves the bolt carrier. The bolt unlocks, extracts, and ejects the spent case, and as things move back they compress springs. Finally, the stored spring energy pushes the whole assembly forward again to feed a fresh round and lock the bolt for the next shot. That cycle repeats at a high speed in automatic fire, or once per trigger pull in semi-automatic mode. Each sentence in that summary corresponds to a physical part. The chamber and barrel channel the gas. A gas port taps some of that gas into a gas tube. A piston receives that impulse. The bolt carrier transmits it to a bolt that locks into the barrel extension. An extractor grabs the case, an ejector throws it out, and a recoil or return spring brings the parts back home. The choreography is quick and brutal, but it's deliberately uncomplicated. To understand why the AK-47 is so famous for reliability, consider each of those parts and how the design tolerates real-world abuse. The long stroke piston connects solidly to the bolt carrier because the piston and carrier are one moving group. The system is less sensitive to the precise amount of gas or to filing in the gas channel than other, lighter systems that rely on directly tapping gas at the bolt face. The bolt itself has a simple, rugged locking surface that rotates only a small angle to lock and unlock. Those surfaces are broad and sturdy rather than razor-thin precise latches. Critical tolerances, how closely parts fit together, were chosen to allow generous clearances, so dirt and grit can exist between moving parts without stopping operation. The magazine latch and feed path are likewise fashioned to keep cartridges aligned even when dropped, bumped, or carried through mud. All of these features trade a bit of precision and lightness for resilience and ease of maintenance. A sensible compromise for a weapon intended to be used in harsh conditions by conscript armies and irregular forces. The magazine is another important piece to consider. Its curved shape follows the natural stacking angle of the cartridge it was originally designed around, and that curvature helps reliable feeding by keeping cartridge rims and noses in predictable positions as they move to the top of the stack. The magazine couples to a simple catch on the rifle body: insert, click, you're ready, so magazine changes are fast and tolerant of rough handling. The standard magazines hold a moderate number of rounds so the soldier can maintain firepower without frequent reloads. A magazine follower and spring push rounds upward into the feed lips, where the bolt strips the top round forward into the chamber during the forward stroke of the action. Inside the bolt group you'll find components that manage locking, firing, and extraction. The bolt locks into place during firing by engaging lugs with matching recesses in the barrel extension or trunnion. A cam surface on the bolt carrier forces the bolt to rotate as it moves, which achieves locking or unlocking. The extractor is a small claw that holds onto the rim of the cartridge case, so it can be pulled free after firing. Once freed, An ejector or edge on the receiver throws the empty case out through the ejection port. These parts must hold together strongly at the precise microsecond, when chamber pressure is highest, so they're made of hardened steel and shaped to distribute stress evenly rather than concentrating it. Understanding the gas system visually helps make sense of the whole action. When a cartridge is fired, a bullet races down the barrel and gas expands behind it. At a certain point, a small port in the barrel redirects some gas into a tube or cylinder above or around the barrel. That trapped gas pushes on the face of a piston, and the piston drives the bolt carrier backward with significant force. The bolt carrier's rearward motion extracts and ejects the spent case and compresses the recoil spring. When the recoil spring expands, it pushes the bolt carrier forward again, which strips the next round from the magazine and chambers it, while the bolt rotates and locks into place to prepare for the next shot, because part of the gas is bled into the gas system. A rifle like this can operate automatically without the shooter manually cycling the action, which was a major tactical advantage when it was first introduced. The AK-47's materials and manufacturing approach were just as important as its mechanical simplicity. Designed in an era and region where production capacity varied and parts were often made under austere conditions, the rifle's components could be stamped, forged, and machined without needing ultra-precise tooling. The design allowed for mass production while maintaining functional reliability across many factories and subcontractors. Where other designs might require high-precision machining to maintain exact tolerances, this rifle's wider clearances, robust parts, and straightforward assembly made it easier to produce quickly and cheaply while still being effective on the battlefield. Ballistics, the behavior of a bullet after it leaves the barrel, are a separate but related topic. The cartridge originally associated with the rifle balances stopping power, recoil, and range. That cartridge's size and shape determine how the magazine is arranged, how the barrel's rifling behaves, and how the sights are calibrated. The rifle's barrel length and twist rate influence the accuracy and the gyroscopic stabilization of the bullet in flight. In practical terms, the weapon was optimized for combat ranges typical of mid-20th century conflicts, engagements where reliability and ease of use often mattered more than pinpoint long-range accuracy. Speaking of accuracy, a straightforward way to understand an assault rifle's performance is to remember that its design priorities influence where it excels and where it compromises. The AK-47 tends to emphasize reliability, durability, and ease of use. That can mean sacrificing a degree of precision that a finely tuned, tightly toleranced rifle might achieve at extended ranges. However, for the ranges at which most infantry engagements occur, the weapon's consistent pattern of impact, predictable recoil, and straightforward sighting system made it effective. Variants and later models sought to refine accuracy without losing the core benefits, adding things like improved sights, better bedding of the barrel to the receiver, and enhanced manufacturing processes. The trigger mechanism itself is simple and robust. Pulling the trigger disengages a sear that holds the hammer or striker back. Once released, a spring propels the hammer forward to strike the firing pin, initiating ignition of the cartridge primer. In fully automatic models, the fire control group includes an extra component that catches the hammer in a different position to allow continuous fire, as long as the trigger is held. Designers must balance safety, preventing accidental discharge, and the desired feel of the trigger pull. In a military context, many features favor reliability and safety over an ultra-light, crisp trigger that might be preferred on a precision sporting rifle. Sights and ergonomics complete the basic user interface. The iron sights are often simple, open designs adjusted by sliding or rotating elements to set for range. They're intuitive, easy to use under stress, and resistant to damage. Stocks and grips are shaped to allow control and to absorb recoil energy in a way that lets the shooter quickly reacquire targets. Over the decades, many user-driven modifications and accessories have been added to variants of the platform: optical sights, modern stocks, and rails for attachments, allowing users to adapt the platform to specialized needs while keeping the core mechanism intact. Variants and derivative models proliferated because the original architecture could be scaled, simplified, and improved in many ways. Manufacturers in different countries changed materials, ergonomics, and furniture depending on resources and intended use. Some variants focused on lighter weight, others on enhanced durability or compatibility with different ammunition types. Such evolution reflects a basic truth about successful mechanical designs: when a concept is robust and useful, many hands will adapt it to local needs and manufacturing realities. That proliferation also explains why the rifle, in its many forms, appears in so many conflicts, both state and non-state. There's a powerful cultural and political dimension to the story as well. A weapon's distribution reflects geopolitics as much as engineering. The dispersion of this rifle and its variants across the globe came from a mix of official military aid, licensed production, battlefield capture, and black market trade. That widespread diffusion amplified its symbolic power. It became not only an instrument of war, but a symbol of certain political movements and struggles. This symbolic life matters because it influences how people perceive conflict and weapons, often in ways that outlast any particular battle. Ethically and legally, it's important to be clear how the rifle is used and who has access to it as serious matters. Laws governing ownership and use vary widely by country and region. Many nations tightly regulate or ban civilian ownership of automatic weapons and place restrictions on semi-automatic rifles. Discussions about these laws touch on public safety, individual rights, and historical context. If you're presenting material on a platform with a global audience, be mindful to include a short mention about local legality, safety, and the importance of following the law. Encourage viewers to consult laws in their jurisdiction and to take safety training seriously if they live in places where ownership is legal. Another important angle is maintenance and care, but here I'll keep things conceptual. Any mechanical system that moves under high stress benefits from periodic inspection, cleaning, and proper lubrication. The AK-47's forgiving design means it will operate for long periods even with suboptimal care. But regular attention extends service life and reduces the chance of malfunction. Maintenance concepts include keeping the barrel and gas system free of obstructions, ensuring springs and pins remain intact, and verifying that wear hasn't compromised key locking surfaces. None of this is construction or step-by-step repair instruction. Just an explanation that, like any precision system, long-term, safe functioning relies on respect for how parts wear and how materials respond to use. The rifle's impact on tactics is another interesting subject, its automatic capability. Combined with a medium-powered cartridge and reliable feeding, changed infantry tactics by making automatic and semi-automatic fire more accessible to large numbers of soldiers and irregular fighters. It supported shorter engagement distances, suppressive fire tactics, and mobility in difficult terrain. Commanders appreciated the ability to field large numbers of dependable rifles, and irregular forces valued a weapon that offered firepower without a need for advanced logistical support. From a historical perspective, the gun's development occurred in a particular technological and strategic context. Mid-20th century advances in propellants, metallurgy, and production methods combined with battlefield experience to favor a compact, robust, intermediate caliber weapon for infantry use. That context explains why the design choices made sense. An intermediate cartridge balances range and controllability, robust materials, and simple machining make mass production feasible. And gas-operated cycling allows automatic fire without excessive mechanical complexity. Now let's talk about common misconceptions. One is that the rifle is inherently more lethal than other rifles because of mythic properties. In reality, lethality depends on ammunition, shot placement, and circumstances. Another misconception is that the rifle is invulnerable to any type of damage. While it is famously rugged, it's still a mechanical device that can fail if abused beyond reasonable limits. Is that its widespread use reflects technological superiority alone. The truth is more complex. Politics, economics, logistics, and doctrine all drive what equipment armies field. The global story of the platform is also a story of adaptation. In some regions, users have modified furniture or added optics to suit hunting, law enforcement, or sporting users under local regulations. In others, scarcity of spare parts inspired creative repairs and local manufacturing. Those adaptations show how an ecosystem of users can stretch a design into forms the original designers might not have imagined, for better or worse. If you're producing this video visually, consider ways to show these concepts without encouraging unsafe behavior. Animated diagrams that show the flow of gas, the motion of the piston, and the rotation of the bolt can make the operation intuitive without revealing instructions. Historical photos and maps can show diffusion and variance. Interviews or quotes from historians and arms experts add perspective. If you include footage of real firearms, ensure it's lawful, responsibly used, and shows safe handling practices, clear muzzle control, empty chambers when demonstrated for illustration, and so on. Visual cues about safety and legality will reinforce your responsibility as a creator. When people ask why the design endured, the short answer circles back to economy and effectiveness. It was cheap enough to produce widely, simple enough to use without extensive training, and rugged enough to survive conditions that would cripple more delicate systems. Those are compelling practical advantages, and they explain why the rifle and its family of designs remain influential many decades later. Finally, let's reflect on the human side. Tools shape human action, and firearms are tools with an unusual moral gravity. Understanding how such a tool works helps demystify it, but knowledge carries responsibility. When you explain mechanisms, history, or culture, you're participating in the conversation about how societies choose to arm themselves, how conflicts unfold, and how individuals and communities are affected. Encourage viewers to think critically about those larger issues, the consequences of armed conflict, the responsibilities of ownership and use, and the role of policy in shaping outcomes. To wrap up, the AK-47's operation is elegant in its simplicity. A gas tap, a piston, a moving carrier, and a rotating bolt work together in a quick dance to feed, fire, extract, and reload. Each design choice promotes reliability and manufacturability at some cost to precision. Its historical spread reflects a complex interplay of design efficacy, politics, and economics. And while the engineering story is fascinating, it sits beside ethical and legal dimensions that are equally important to discuss. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more videos that combine engineering with history and ethics, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment telling me what you'd like explained next. Thanks for watching, and please remember, knowledge is powerful and should always be used responsibly. If you want, I can adapt this script to a slightly shorter narration for a tighter video, add timestamps for chapter markers, or produce a version with suggested on-screen graphics and animated diagrams that illustrate the gas system and bolt rotation. Just tell me which format you prefer, and I'll tailor it.